Hello, and welcome to today's roundtable discussion. Tis the season to shop, but is your brand retail ready? My name is Renata Akers. I'm a digital commerce analyst at Astound Commerce and today's moderator. I'm very excited to be joined by a panel of 5 experts, all with years of experience and extensive knowledge of the customer experience in the digital commerce landscape at large, to discuss topics from Astound's recent Global Consumer Survey report, preparing for the next normal holiday season. They will share their insights on the trends and shifting consumer behaviors and what this means for brands as they attempt to prepare for what is shaping up to be yet another uncertain holiday season. Let's begin with a brief introduction from each of our speakers. Chris, would you start us off, please?
Sure. My name is Chris Burkholm, Director of Demand Services in North America for Astound Commerce.
Gus? Gus, can we get an introduction from you?
Sorry, I'm having some technical challenges. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay. So my name is Angus Bless. I'm from Adyen. Feel free to call me Gus. I look after Adyen's commercial partnerships across Europe.
Thank you. And Matt from Algolia?
Hello, everybody. Matt Eisner from Algolia here. I play a dual role here at Algolia. First is I'm responsible for our global partnerships for solution providers like Astound, and then also our retail and consumer goods strategy lead. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. And Ed, please.
Hi, everybody. Ed Whitehead. So I'm the MD for Signifyd here in EMEA, and I head up both our sort of pre and post sales engagements with our customers.
Great, thank you. And last but not least, Matt from Klarna.
Hey everyone, pleasure to meet you. I'm the very frequently referred to as the other Matt here, and I oversee our commercial and partnerships organizations here at Klarna in North America.
Perfect, thank you all. Well, let's jump right into it. Let's begin our discussion. So let's start with the search experience. Search is very fundamental to the online customer journey. As such, 62% of shoppers in our global survey said they would abandon a brand site if they are unable to find what they are looking for via the search box. So, Matt from Algolia, in your opinion, why do so many brands continue to underperform in this particular area by misleading consumers?
Yeah, sure. Search has been undervalued for many years, and I think it's probably only in the past 2 or 3 years that some retailers have started to pay attention. You know, if we look at Forrester data that's out there, we know that 43% of all consumers, when they land on your site, will go directly to the search box and start their experience from there. On the B2B side, it's even more. Sometimes it can be upwards of 90%. So search is incredibly important. We also know from our partnership with Baymard Research that 49% of all the e-commerce sites out there that Baymard has benchmarked have poor or mediocre search experiences. So to your point, Renata, we don't think that there is enough focus on search. Oftentimes when this focus on search starts, it's all about faster search or more relevant search, which is sort of a phase one or a step one in your search maturity journey. Then folks tend to go through, how do I drive experience through search? By using filters, facets, navigation. That's typically a logical second step. Third step usually comes to merchandising, personalization, and recommendations. And then from there, we let the machines take over a little bit and let the AI perform, let the algorithms perform, let some of that dynamic and programmatic content come up. So that's typically how we see people advancing their journey. Oftentimes they get stuck in that first level, which is faster, more relevant, and they never advance up the maturity curve. But when we look at the impact that search can have, it's huge. We have some anecdotes from some of our clients here in the United States where when they implement something like Algolia or just better search in general, they can see their search conversion rate go up anywhere between 30 and 50%. So it's huge. And that increase in your e-commerce efficiency, when you take a look at that and compare it back to what I started with, where 43% of the people that land on your site start with search, could have a huge impact with a little bit of effort.
Absolutely. I mean, and I just think about people use Google so frequently, they're used to just speaking at this point to get what they want. So I just feel like search is so valuable, and brands should definitely pay more attention to that. So definitely.
Absolutely.
So continuing on, search is just one part of the larger discovery experience. When we asked shoppers what attribute of the physical store they missed the most during the mandated store closures of 2020, the ability to browse and discover new products and/or brands ranked number one on the list, ahead of the touch and feel nature of the in-store shopping experience. So Matt from Klarna, can you explain how brands can perhaps replicate the in-store discovery experience via their digital channels?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a couple of ways of thinking about the approach. Just through the lens of a payment option, right? It's this idea of how can you find unique ways of bringing the fitting room home. One of the ways that we've solved that at Klarna is actually introducing what you may see in the market referred to as like a try before you buy, where you pay nothing today and have a set a number of days, typically in line with your return policy, to understand fit, understand if you like it, and things of that nature. And with that model, right, it removes any level of potential friction that may exist when a customer has to, when a customer is shopping online versus a physical store. But it brings that physical store experience, again, bringing the fitting room home as a true option in the digital experience. I think even further to that, though, what I always stress is most important is helping your retail partners or retailers understanding their consumers. And I think what's unique in terms of what we're doing is, so in the US today, Klarna has over 20 million shoppers, of which can shop anywhere. They can shop on one of our integrated partners of our thousands of different options of who we've integrated with, but they also within our app can shop anywhere, right? They can go to Amazon, they can go anywhere in the world. As you start thinking about the insights that you can get as a result of that, you start picking up on trends, buying behaviors, and as a result can provide really relevant recommendations, right? So as a payment option, you may understand their age, their location, maybe their gender, but you can also then understand where they're shopping, not only at the brand, but the SKU level of what they're buying, and even down to size, color, fit, all those things. The third component is purchase intent. So again, an example of what we're doing today is through our app, customers can, let's say, wish list an item. They really show purchase intent. Maybe they'll set a notification on notify me when this is 10% off. So across all this, you start building interest profiles where you can truly start understanding what shoppers want. And then as a result, give very relevant recommendations on product and on fit. And so again, to think about sort of breaking through the inability to being in a physical store, understanding your shopper, understanding their interests, and even understanding things down to the nature of like preferred size, colors, and whatnot, allows you to provide really relevant recommendations when a customer can't physically go do that in a store, but is more accustomed or more prone to having to do that online.
Absolutely. And Gus, did you have anything to add to that? We were discussing replicating the in-store discovery experience via a digital channel.
I think Gus is still having a bit of a technical difficulty, but I think he was going to talk about more of, physical shopping in relation to digital commerce, right? Physical shopping is this pastime, right? People go to Fifth Avenue, Champs-Élysées to browse, maybe to buy, but they're going to look, right? And I think SNL actually touched on this very, very well late in the pandemic last year with their skit on browsing through Zoom or Zillow, right? Like the idea that the product you're spending the majority of your time with right now is your house, and the ability to go and look at all these different houses and window shop. That's kind of the first time that's actually happened in mainstream. Gus, can you hear us?
Poor Gus.
But yeah, I think that's where he was going to go with that. Just the luxury brands have been adding these new channels, the video selling, the personal selling, the using of the messenger apps, all of that to kind of recreate the in-store shopper experience. Part of that being just working with the clerk, the sales associates. There's a cohort of individuals that like that experience. And so trying to replicate that online and be able to help facilitate consumer decision making in real time can drastically improve conversion rates.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I
that's
think.
such a
Can
great
you hear me more? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me? You can't hear me, can you?
We can.
Go for it. Okay, we'll move on. Hopefully he'll be able to join us here soon. So let's move on to omnichannel. So in keeping with that theme of omnichannel, the in-store versus the online experience and how to sort of integrate those two, how can brands anticipate shoppers' needs and better enable a seamless experience regardless of channel? Gus, can you hear us?
Renat, I can start there for you.
Great, thank you.
So when we think about omnichannel, we had talked about the store, the last question. When we think about a customer who's exploring the store, walking up and down the aisles, browsing each and every product, we can expect that customer is going to experience
you can hear. Well, I think you've covered it. So thank you, Chris, for saying.
It's almost like he has a severe delay.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
But to go back to what I was saying, we have those customers in the store for perhaps 15 or 20 or even longer. Online with these online sessions, we might have them for 2 or 3 minutes at most. So we need to surface.
If you can hear me. You can't hear me.
I'm sorry, continue on, Matt, please.
Yep. So because we have these customers online for such a short period of time in each session when they join us, perhaps 2 or 3 minutes at most, we need to surface the most relevant products to what they're trying to discover at that time.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to what Matt was saying, the way we sort of view Omni is how do you bring a consistent experience both online and in store? And the idea is that can you provide customers with all the different options, all the different features and functionality that you have in a physical store and present them to online? And we find that that's always the approach and really making it an effective strategy, for shoppers. I'll give one example. The team earlier was referencing, going to a store, speaking to a store manager, getting recommendations, right? Like you see this so often. People really love that type of feature that's set up. And we understood that at Klarna as something like, how do we replicate that online? And we actually, as a result, recently acquired a company called Hero that does exactly that for the online experience. And again, bringing those two worlds together, knowing that the shopper at Macy's online and the shopper at Macy's in a physical store, they very well may be that same person. So the idea is, how do we give them that replicated experience regardless of channel that they're browsing on?
Well, and it constantly ties back to this aspect of personalization. That individual in the store that you're speaking to is personalizing your shopping experience real time. She's creating or he's creating contextually relevant recommendations based on the input you're providing. We need to be able to use that online as well. And the data exists. We just need to do it intelligently. And I think things like search help definitely facilitate processes like that. You're providing data as an input, and you need it to be able to provide a recommendation back based on how you phrase the search, qualifiers you've used in the query, that sort of, and we're getting there. And I think Algolia does a great job at actually pushing towards that.
Yeah, and Chris, we've specifically here at Algolia, we stopped talking about ourselves as a search platform. Sure, we do search very well. We do the search box better than most, better than some. But really what we are at this point is a discovery platform.
Yes.
Because so much of what we learn from that customer's clickstream goes into the experiences we build as he or she moves deeper into the site. So based on clickstream data on the homepage or on a category landing page, we can adjust the UI and the presentation of a product detail page, depending on what he or she was interested in over the course of their journey. All of that helps us put more products in front of her during her session. And the more products we put in front of her, the more likely she is to add to cart. Average order value goes up. Everybody's happy.
Well, and the other great thing about this is, I mean, it's really replicating that in-store experience, right? And one thing about holiday, a large portion of the demographic, they're going and buying high price point items. And I'm probably skipping forward a little bit, Renata, apologies, but the buy now, pay later aspect, right? In 2020, buy now, pay later in the US increased 109%. 109% in one season. And it's not that it didn't. I mean, Klarna, what has it been? 15 years? I mean, it's not that it didn't
16,
exist before. It's that it just, we're getting visibility. People last year had to recreate that environment at home, and they're realizing all of these options are available.
Yeah, and I think that's why you want to make something like buy now, pay later available not only for online, but we're now seeing the scale and the adoption just as much in physical stores, right? And I think if you even look at last year and last year's holiday, we can definitely at least partly attribute the usage to the pandemic, right? We saw a 40% reduction, I think, in credit card applications. I think we saw $100 billion, I think the number is, in credit card debt paid off during this time. So an aspect of that clearly shows consumers shifting away from credit cards. And then I think when you think about more of the holistic and fundamental shift, it's looking at the young shopper, mainly millennial and Gen Z. More and more are those consumers are using debit cards rather than credit cards today. I think the statistic is north of 50% of young shoppers are no longer using credit cards. And then when you think about, Klarna in our space, just in the US, 20 million shoppers, predominantly the majority of those shoppers are those young shoppers. And what we see is their vehicle for facilitating a transaction is that debit card. And so if you can give them the most effective and an optimized way of using a debit card online, and often, they point to using, a product like Klarna, I think that's really where you're going to start winning and start seeing the increase in spend, start seeing the increase in conversion. And then again, add the layer on of making it available not only in digital, but in physical stores. That's truly why you're seeing that scale and adoption that you were referencing, Chris.
No, that's great. Oh, go ahead.
Hey, Matt, quick question. Which categories do you see, buy now, pay later, really increasing this year as opposed to last year?
Yeah, I think we've always seen, and always, I think since the adoption's really scaled in the US, you see it predominantly in fashion, beauty, sort of your go-to-market verticals in the world of retail. I think really intriguing has just been how the adoption has broadened, especially over the last 12 months, right? So you're seeing it more in home items. You're seeing it more, again, in just physical stores, whether that is apparel, but starting to see it more in just like your everyday purchases, right? People starting to use Klarna to go, maybe they want to buy a cup of coffee, maybe they want to go, use it for subscription. So where it's matured to, especially in the US, is the broadening of different verticals that we're now seeing. And I think it's less about, this has an application towards this specific vertical. I think it's more, this is becoming a widely used payment option for the everyday shopper and the everyday consumer.
What's the makeup of the sort of transaction size as well? That always interests me. What's the sort of average transaction size on the Klarna?
Yeah, look, you're going to see a range, right? Like we partner with some of the largest luxury brands in the world, where you're going to see consumers use it for items north of $4,000. We also partner with with brands like a Sephora as an example that is going to have a lower ticketed item. So the adoption can be anywhere as low as, in some cases, like a $30 transaction, in some cases north of $5,000. I think what's really intriguing is the repeat usage of customers continuing to come back to use it for every one of their transactions, much like consumers 10 years ago and still today are doing it with their Amex or their Visa. That's sort of the vehicle that this is becoming, is giving that ubiquity to use it anywhere.
It's that first purchase path, isn't it? Right. And you can actually take that to a retailer. If the same retailer or the several retailers offering the same thing, that first retailer who gets the conversion gets the repeat business. If my payment mechanism is a card still, it maybe keep going with cards. If it's Klarna, I buy straight into that. To Chris's point, 15 years though. So many people don't know how long Klarna's been around. They just see it as the explosion in the last couple of years. But it's been there for a long time, just garnering consumer adoption, and it's been a fantastic couple of years.
Exactly. And I mean, it's also obviously helping to build loyalty within the customer's experience. right? So I think that's really interesting. And so moving on, Matt, sticking with the subject of buy now, pay later, you touched on this, how people are moving away from credit card usage. But can you talk more about the mindful spending that you're seeing rising to within consumerism?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think when you think about the mindful spending is, and again, there's relevancy to what we've all been dealing with the last 18 to 24 months of, where we are spending, right? People were going out less. There was a little bit more disposable income when it comes to, buying goods for yourself. And I think when you think about just in general, mindful spending, it's how can we give customers as many options that sort of fit the needs of their lifestyle. And one of the things that the way that we approach that is, let's not give customers just a single option of saying like, hey, here's one way to pay over time and call it every 2 weeks is one example. Let's give them the ability to pay over longer periods if needed for higher ticketed items. Let's give them the ability to pay now, right? And so as you think about the mix of what you can provide, paying over time in a variety of different ways is a single feature. What it comes down to more is, to your earlier point, is building the loyalty across that network that gives customers as many reasons to continue to come back, to your platform and use you for a variety of different reasons, whether that's, giving them rewards points, whether that's giving them a ton of different features of where and how you can use it. Or maybe it's the brand, right? One of the things that we think about, especially with these young shoppers, and, I think they're, the way younger shoppers and consumers resonate with brands today is very different than what it once was. We understand that. So often in any of our branding to consumers, we ultimately want to position ourselves as a brand for a new generation of shoppers. And that's why you see us partner with, different people in the space when it comes to consumer branding, whether it's, Snoop Dogg, Lady Gaga, most recently A$AP Rocky. It's finding those right influencers that speak to that younger audience, because we know the younger audience is going to resonate with brands much differently than they have in the past. And so it's bringing all those things together, obviously with spending being a critical component of it.
Absolutely. Let's turn to a very sexy subject, fraud and prevention. So in our study, 67% of global consumers said they would leave a site if they believed their personal information was not secure. How has the pandemic-induced shift to digital channels changed the way brands need to think about fraud? And that's, of course, for our fraud expert, Ed.
Yeah, I mean, the Christmas period's a bit unlike any other, right? Think of your own behavior when you're shopping for Christmas presents. I'm not a big high street person. I don't want to go down Oxford Street before Christmas and find my way through the crowds. I will do all of my shopping probably on one evening, and I've got my list and I will just fire through them all. Whenever else do you sit there and as an individual buy a load of different goods off a load of different sites and send them to a load of different people? I'm quite lazy. I'll even get them gift wrapped and delivered to people. They may not even be in this country. So suddenly you're dealing with very different behavior. Now, if you're a retailer, that's a sudden spike in volume. And hang on, you're suddenly seeing it could be one IP address in a way, suddenly buying a load of different goods on one credit card and shipping them to loads of different people. Now, any other time in the year, that looks like risky behavior. That looks like fraudulent behavior, but actually it's not. It's just typical of the time of year that you're in. And so I think that's one of the sort of keys messages to retailers is you've got to put yourself in the mindset for this period, put yourself in the mindset of how the shopper, how the consumer actually behaves in this period. And where you have the benefit of being able to look at a network of data, you're able to see that actually we've seen ties between that IP and that delivery and that billing address before, and actually treat it as not risky. And it feeds into a couple of things. The first is you really don't want false positives. You don't want to be turning those good shoppers away. This is such a critical part of your trading year. How many retailers do we see that get 40-50% of their annual revenues come from the Christmas trading period? You've got to make sure that you're prepared for it, really, and you've got the right resources. If you still rely on things like manual review, make sure you've got enough people in there, or look for automation so that you're not suddenly stuck with a bottleneck. But yeah, it's all about thinking, putting yourself in the mind of consumers, and for once, like, they're generally probably not fraudsters when they're trying to do this sort of elevated level of shopping.
Exactly.
Well, and I know Gus, I mean, he would have touched on just the fact of, if you're dealing with the actual return itself, right? How do you maintain the customer in that experience? I mean, we're seeing in 2020, we saw levels of spend increase 35% to 49%, depending on which time frame in the holiday you're looking at. And with that level of increase, you're bound to have an increase in returns. And it needs to Ed's point, put yourself in the consumer mindset, right? Maybe they want to return in the store. Maybe we need to extend the return time frame, but find a way to allow consumers to return products in the way that's most meaningful for them. Because if you facilitate a positive return experience, you've created a positive experience, which means that consumer is more likely to come back. If you create a negative return experience, that's going to leave a lasting impression with that consumer. Not only did they not get necessarily what they were hoping for, or something that, you know, was inadequate, but then the process of trying to get it back and get their money was also fundamentally inadequate. They're not going to come back. You need to go over the top to facilitate a positive experience there.
So it's a really tricky one for retailers, isn't it? Because
Yes.
you're almost opening the gates as well, and you don't have to look far. It's not even on the dark web now where you find returns and refunds services, right? You find them on Facebook, you find them everywhere. So you're kind of caught in this position in the middle where you're like, want to make it as accommodating as possible for your customers to return, but you can't leave yourself open to abuse of that returns piece as well. So it's kind of that fine balance. And again, that's where the network piece can come in. You know what? The people who claim that they never received the item during the pandemic, they keep doing it. You know, the people who ask that you sent me a red jumper, not a black jumper, they keep doing it, you know? And so that network of information, you have to rely on that. You get serial returners. Actually, get away with it once, fine, sure, fair enough. Get away with it twice, maybe not. But the behavior, when you see that repeat behavior, that's a bad customer. And you can block those without breaking the accommodating, generous return policies of your genuine customers. Because, you know, you do buy more in the holiday period. You don't quite know what's going to fit or what's going to, you know, go with the rest of the decorations that you bought. So it's a real, I think that's one of the challenges coming up. I think more and more next year, you know, from a very narrow fraud sort of protection angle, SCA, great bit of legislation, that's going to stop fraud at the point of transaction, but it's then going to move to things like returns and people claiming they never received the items. That's, I think, something we've got to look out for next year.
Well, and to elaborate on that, on what Ed said, I mean, there's a ripple effect to that too, with those serial returners and fraud. Once they're going to eat up customer service, they're going to eat up the ability to interact with real consumers trying to do real return transactions and that have real issues. And if you're able to mitigate and alleviate some of that burden to your customer service line, you're now actually helping real consumers with real problems, leaving a better positive experience. And so it works in a couple of different ways that you need to make sure you're handling these things appropriately.
Yeah, use systems to give the nice, easy traffic light system, whether it's an initial screening or whether it's on the returns, and let the customer service person do what customer service should. Exactly. Help genuine customers get better value out of the products.
Exactly.
When I think about returns here at Algolia, you know, I look at everything from a search and discovery point of view. So I want to put the right products in front of that customer so that they don't enter into the return process. One of the unique use cases that we see some of our clients implementing is what I'll call affinity. So if you bought this, you might also like that. And we're taking some of those product affinity scores, putting them into our search index, and then surfacing recommendations based on product affinity, based on what other people purchased. We could even take that one step further with some of this returns data. with some of these products that have a higher return rate than others, we could actually use that data, put it into the index, and actually bury some of these results to avoid that return. Because in the case of returns, if we think that a large proportion of these products are going to be returned no matter what, it doesn't even make sense to sell them because of the cost associated with dealing with the return on the backside.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that's something in our holiday report that we do touch on, is trying to mitigate those returns, before it happens, before the buy button. So whether that's, within search, as you were referring to, or if it's a product page where you're just, giving those relevant recommendations, or just providing more, details on the product, that can go a long way in helping to sort of thwart the number of returns that we see within the retail industry each year. Absolutely. So talking a little bit more about fraud, Ed, in your view, is there like an overlooked touch point that you would say in the customer journey that is most vulnerable to a potential act of fraud, or is this sort of a holistic view, or just can you speak to that a little bit, please?
I touched on it briefly earlier. So there is the SCA legislation, certainly here in Europe. I'm sure everyone on the call knows what it is, but super quickly, it means that more and more transactions will get stepped up, ultimately through 3DS. And so that's blocking a lot of the fraud at the transaction point. In fact, if you try to buy something on PayPal, you'll find you're getting a lot more text messages now, and you have to put the text in to get through. So it creates a lot of friction, sure, but it does actually block fraud or bad payments at that point. You've got to remember, the people who've been trying to scam retailers for many, many years aren't just going to suddenly give up and go home. That's the only thing. They're going to look for the path of least resistance. So, from our data, we have seen an increase in this item not received. So people claiming they never received an item. They can also do that as a kind of refund abuse as well. Like, oh, I just never got it, and tend to be aggressive with the customer service rep, they're right up in their face sort of thing. And the customer service rep is, well, I can't upset my customers, so just bang, gone, fine, refund it. So whether it's come through as a chargeback or just, abusive kind of consumer behavior, moving more into that post-purchase element. So claiming they never received it, the item was the wrong color or whatever. And then the other one, which we're all reading about, account takeover. So it's SCA has sort of stopped this bit in the middle, but pushed the pressures out to the either side. So people trying to steal credentials, if you've then got the credentials to log into consumers' accounts and start placing orders, if they're a trusted merchant, if it's on a subscription, that evades the whole SCA process. So we see more and more pressure at that element, at the sort of account takeover, account login element, and then the post-purchase. But I think the key is it will always stay fluid. Wherever it's easiest for people to scam retailers, that's what they're going to try and do. And so you just need to make sure where you're looking or where your solution is helping you covers that end to end. You never just focus on one element. You've got to look across the board, really. But it will be an ongoing fluid challenge. As I say, these people make more money than you and I do from doing nefarious activities, so they're not going to suddenly give up, and they don't have to pay tax on it.
That makes me feel good about myself.
Yeah, but you have to have some stupid moniker or some stupid name and avatar to do it. So, it's an interesting game.
Right. Interesting topic. But let's move on a little bit. Let's move on to loyalty, which I know, Chris, this is a subject, near and dear to your heart. So for you, how would you say brand loyalty specifically has changed over the course of the pandemic? And where do you see it? Can you talk about where is it going, perhaps in the near term or the long term, just sort of broad strokes?
Yeah, I mean, the thing you're hearing consistently thus far, even across a broad range of topics, is this concept of creating brand loyalty and recreating the consumer experience from in-store and online. And that creates consumer habituation. Ease of use, positive experience is the best way to create customer loyalty. And in a study that Astound did, across a variety of different reasons why a consumer might purchase with a particular brand, whether it's lowest prices, brand loyalty, best quality or selection, convenience, whether the business is local, or shared brand values. The number one reason in North America, Europe, and the Middle East, number one reason is loyalty to the brand, right? I'm loyal to the brand. In fact, it's shifted so much that in Europe and the Middle East, the lowest price was the second to lowest reason consumers were going to make a decision to purchase with the brand. I mean, that is significantly different from our assumptions, even 2-3 years ago. Now, add to that 1/4 of consumers globally are going to spend or anticipate spending more on presents this holiday season than they did last year. And you're in this you can start to see the potential here for brands, right? Learning to identify who is a loyal customer right now, looking at the data that exists within your e-commerce KPIs, within your marketing KPIs, and be able to identify what the attributes are that make a loyal customer. Create custom segments and cohorts with personalized, contextually relevant messaging that doesn't beat somebody over the head. Don't take the approach of sending out 30 emails in 30 days over the holiday season. Send 2 or 3 that are meaningful, personalized, and targeted towards the consumers that are loyal. And there's a lot of upside available. And it's literally just understanding how to increase engagement and knowing that the key way to do that is really make things simpler. Do the things that are meaningful to the consumer, and all they want is to recreate that experience that they have in store online.
Exactly. So with that, I mean, is there any advice you could give to brands as to, knowing what we know now, how loyalty has changed, how should they adjust their retention strategies to account for these shifting consumer behaviors?
I think we're in a time where brands need to realign what they think of as loyalty. Stop thinking of how to create a loyal customer, but rather how can a brand showcase its loyalty to a customer. Competition in the holiday season is fierce, and the timeline has only extended. So for longer periods of time, you're competing at lower price points. Marketing campaigns are happening at a higher frequency. It is fierce out there. And I think that consumer loyalty has a bit of focus on, now they're aware of things like privacy and how data works in the strategy. And not only do brands need to walk the line of creating more contextually relevant and meaningful and personalized experiences, but they need to do so alongside a promise to protect consumer data and customer data that data is necessary to create that experience. I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. And I think brands that don't get this right and don't embrace that concept and that strategy are going to fall by the wayside over the next year or two. It really is valuable to the consumer to understand that I need relevant, personalized experiences, all with the understanding that I'm giving you some of my information, and I expect you to protect and respect that. Don't beat me over the head with 30 emails. Don't, after I've made a purchase of a product, don't send me an email about the same product but a different variation in a different color. All right? Make it meaningful, make it simple, and be respectful. And just switch. I mean, brands need to realize, like, consumers have lots of choice now, and respect that and start understanding the value of your loyal consumer and make it meaningful. When you create these loyalty programs, create meaningful ways for them either to redeem points or get products. Don't make it hard to do. Don't make all these blackout periods, or you can't get this top of the line product. It's only the things that were end of life. No, you need to show value. And we hammer home on it all the time within demand services. And the brands that do it well The brands that say sign up for my loyalty program and I'm going to give you early access to Black Friday and Cyber Monday a week before the general public gets it. Those are the brands that do well. And they start to see the fruition of stop focusing on near-term conversion and focus on long-term lifetime value. And it's cheaper to get a customer to convert over the long term than it is to acquire a new customer.
I think your point about it actually meaning something, right? Actually getting some value from it. There's an airline company that gives away companion vouchers, right? It can't actually go anywhere with the companion vouchers unless you want to fly somewhere no one else wants to go, completely out of season. And so they stack up. There's no point me having those companion vouchers, right? And then you actually disengage. You almost move away from the product. It's like, well, this is coming from a credit card spend. You still can get points there. But if those points are useless on this, you actually then move away to the market. It's had the inverse effect of creating disloyalty by it not being relevant to me or not being worthwhile ultimately.
Yeah, I think it's such a great point. And I think you can identify different aspects of loyalty with different touch points. Some go a little bit deeper, some are a little bit lighter. And I'll give you one example. We put a lot of thought into loyalty when we built our post-purchase experience. In other words, thinking like, when you go and make a transaction, what's the experience the customer gets when managing their payments, taking a look at their statements, things of that nature. And I think if you even compare that to like a traditional credit card statement where you open your mobile Amex app or your Chase mobile app, what do you historically see? It's line items that say I've spent $100 here, $200 there. And the idea is like, how do you further optimize to bring brand to consumer closer together to build that loyalty? So like quite simply, like what we thought about creating was more of this optimized digital receipt where every store that you purchase from, you can click on that store, see your whole transaction, but it's a branded experience, right? Branded header at the top. You can follow the brand. You can engage with the brand. You can loop in, I don't know, your Instagram handle is one example. You can see the actual SKUs of what you purchased. So on the surface, I think it feels like pretty light touch, but it's this idea of creating that extended layer of loyalty and giving consumers more touch points to engage with that brand much beyond that initial transaction, but ongoing, like you were referencing, Chris. And to that point, within that post-purchase, we actually allow, as you scroll down, that just enables into the web browser to drive the customer back to that website. And again, it's creating this cycle of helping drive more loyalty, helping facilitate that loyalty as a partner. And so I think there's, to your point, Chris, there's so many different ways that you can approach just the topic of loyalty. And that's just one very light way. We even think about it from an ongoing transaction perspective.
Yeah, and I think too many brands are getting confused when they hear loyalty and thinking loyalty program. It's beyond loyalty program. It's user experience. It's before the purchase, at the purchase, after the purchase. It's about building the infrastructure necessary to understand the metrics that define loyalty to you as an organization. And it's about further enhancing the experience, like you said, post-purchase. All of this goes together, and brands again need to stop thinking about just a conversion that's so near term. It's everything encompassed. It just needs to be ease of use.
And that's fascinating. So let's end our discussion with with the holiday season right around the corner. So what is the most important action that you guys would say brands can take today to get prepared for the online holiday shopping surge?
Build a time machine and go back 2 months. If you're starting to think about this year now, you're late. I think there are some small things you can do, like, for instance, maybe trying to identify loyalty cohorts and things like that. But fundamentally, this is e-commerce. Holiday for us starts in June. So.
Yeah, I'd shadow that. I mean, if you're on total box platforms like a Shopify, a BigCom or whatever, there's various plugins that can help you automate your order review, help you speed up your shipping windows, things like that. But if you're looking at a strategic change, you should have been started a while ago. But there are little convenience apps which can boost performance. Yeah.
from my perspective on the search side, if you haven't started your search transformation yet, there are definitely things that you can do over the next few weeks leading up to the peak season. I would first take a look at all of your zero search results, all of those queries that are returning no results, develop synonyms that will support those queries so that you get fewer of those search results. That's sort of step number one. I would be meeting with your merchants early and often to find out what their category and product strategy is for certain key products where you're expecting growth or significant sales through the holiday season. How can you help your merchants boost those products up in the search results and depress other products down into search results based on what they want to do? I would also start to look at your what I call tough to buy products, and I always use tents as an example here. Everybody knows what a tent is, but nobody knows really what the specifications are or the differentiators are between one tent or another. One of the search queries that we see quite a bit with some of our sporting goods retailers is family size tent. To the typical search engine, that means nothing. What that means to a tent expert is you need a 6-person plus tent. So what are some of those natural language queries that customers might bring to your site based on some high value products? And then try to get those into your synonyms as well to deliver better search results. I think oftentimes, Chris, you said it, and Ed, you emphasized it. During the holiday season, we spend a lot of time thinking about sales and promotions. Well, those sales and promotions don't matter if we can't put the right products in front of them. So there are still some of these manual things that you can do pre-peak.
Well, great. That was a great discussion. Thank you all. I apologize we weren't able to get to the attendees' questions, but we would definitely email you and get you guys an answer. Thank you for everyone that gave us the questions, but we'll definitely contact you for that. But now we have to move on. Now it's the most important segment of today's event, the gift card raffle. 5 lucky winners will each receive a $150 gift card from a select list of brands, and we will definitely follow up with you to facilitate that post after our roundtable discussion to give your information. But without further ado, let's go ahead and spin the wheel. Drum roll, please. Congratulations, Etsy Squad. So for our second winner, Rena Sato, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, but congratulations. For our third winner, Shannon Carberry. Congratulations, Shannon. So winner number 4, Melissa Home Rabasco. Sorry if I'm butchering your name, but congratulations, Melissa. And for our last winner, Melanie Masterson. So congratulations, Melanie, and each of our lucky raffle winners. And Patrick. Congratulations, Patrick. So congratulations to all of our raffle winners. We will contact you again to get your information on where we can send your gift card. So with that, I would like to thank all of our attendees for spending some time with us today. Thank you so much to all of our wonderful speakers on your valuable advice and insights. And again, please reach out to us if you guys have any further questions. With that, I wish you all a safe and successful holiday season. Enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.